as probably, I would think some of you have probably used Illustrator and Photoshop to create vector images or pixel images with Photoshop, and Word for text. You can use InDesign to put all those elements together to create, like you said, like like the high school will use for making like a yearbook. This presentation is not the most current, but the premise is pretty much the same. As we all know, Adobe keeps changing their software, but it's pretty much the same on that. This interface is going to be a little bit different as an older, but because I have an older version. This is showing existing file. These are showing new files that you could create. So when you create a new document, you have a lot of options. You can create in millimeters. I came from a background in graphic design, picas or points. Most of the time, most people do inches. So you can define what your size of your document is going to be, the height by the width, and your margins. Does everybody know what a gutter is? And it's the division in the middle when you do. So you can define that. So this is in InDesign when you set up your document. What do you want the layout to be before you? Okay, so here you can give it a name and you can specify how many pages. Is it going to start on the facing page? The A4 is just a setting. You can do that in InDesign. Like if you put it and you select legal, it'll pick it for you. It'll do the settings for you. This has to do with your printing, and the chain is linked or unlinked. That whatever you set your bleed to be, this will all be the same if you have the chain on. So this is when you create a new document in InDesign. You're setting up your document before you start doing anything with it. So this probably looks familiar. I would hope for anybody who uses Photoshop or Illustrator. Your tool panel right here. I'm getting used to Zoom, so I'm trying to see what you guys can see. A lot of the similarities, I want to say most of you have used Photoshop or Illustrator. Yes? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So a lot of this is going to be similar as to pick your items. Okay. All right. So that's your toolbar. I mean, it follows a very similar thing to a lot of the Adobe products. Okay. Here's your menus up here, which file, edit, layout. Okay. Those are your menu items. Go back out. Okay, this is your whole control panel. Okay, so what this is for, okay, so what this is showing, this is your page setup in InDesign. Everything that's going to be inside this pink line is what's going to get printed. Nothing's going to be printed out here. This right here it has to do with your layout, like where things are going to be centered. That gets into that. So a little bit more technical, but this is your control panel for this. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. If you do, let me know. Okay. Let me go back out. And here's your custom panels. This is what I like a lot about InDesign. If anybody remember the days of Quark and PageMaker, I really like, you can do custom panels, like, having pages side to side, link your images, your strokes, and all that. So that's your control panel. Okay, so this is called your document window, and this is, so everything you put inside this area is where everything is going to go that you're going to put into a document. And the way you're doing that is you would have to pick a text box, which is like this. It shows a box, and you would draw a box, and whatever text you put in that box. Let's see if I can do this. Let me actually pull it up. This would make more sense probably if I actually get the whole program actually up. So like here, this is actually, you can name your file. Okay, this is in picas. You can You can set it up in inches or whatever. That's the nice thing about it. And then you create one, I'm creating a document. So as I was showing here, this is a rectangle frame. You create a box, and then your text would go in there. So after you create that box, your text goes in that box. Does that make sense? So whatever you put, so think of everything goes into a box in a sense, your images and everything. So anything that is so what's going to be printed is anything in this area, right? In this area right here. Okay, anything outside of there, no. So the nice thing about when you use InDesign is you put things in boxes, you can lay it out. Has anybody ever tried to do something like this in Microsoft Word, where you try to?
No.
Okay, it's not user friendly. That's why a lot of times when people try to do this, they try to do it in PowerPoint instead of using. But so that's the premise. You're creating text boxes or image boxes. So like if I want to, let's see. Oh, here I'll show you. Let me see. So like if you want to create another box and put an image in it. Let's see. Let me put it. I'm trying to think of what image I can put in there. So I can put an image in that, or I can place. It's called placing. You can place an image in there. Okay, here's a picture of me, and so you can place an image into a box, and you can resize the image within the box. That's a lot of nice things you can do, and that's how they're doing like the school yearbook. But they'll do that. That gets them more into templates. But that's basically kind of what you're doing. Is you're creating a the best analogy I try to think is like Dreamweaver, where everything's linked into it because it's not embedded. You link everything into InDesign. Like the only thing that's going to be in there is your type, but all the images are going to be linked, because otherwise, if you try to embed it into InDesign, your file is going to get really, really big. Okay, all right. So this is your this is your page area. This is what this is called. So this your pasteboard, you can put stuff outside of this area, but it's not going to get printed. And you'll see people will put stuff out in this area and just use it as a holding place, but it won't get printed. It's not a it's so okay. All right. So here are some of the tools that there is, and I don't know who knows like Illustrator and stuff, but you have some of the functions like the pen tools, your selecting tools like the other Adobe stuff, your text tool. You can do some of the functions you can do in the other software by Adobe, but it's limited. That's why it's best when you're going to create something like for InDesign that you use Photoshop for the Photoshop stuff, Illustrator for the for the vector stuff, that you use those tools and then bring it into InDesign. InDesign, I guess, can kind of do that, but it's limited. Let's see. Any questions so far? Okay.
When you're placing a photo, I remember something. There were two different color boxes. I think wasn't one you resize and one you actually
Let me go back.
do something else with the photo within the box. I forget.
Okay, you talking about like this?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, this is a box. You can create different all kinds of word boxes. You can put images. So like I put an image inside of the box, and then you can resize. You can fit it inside that box, or you can scale it.
Okay. Maybe they've got away from that. I remember there being two different color. One was blue, I think. One was red or something.
Yeah, there was two boxes. Let me see.
But maybe they got away from that because that was
Yeah,
confusing.
it was. Well, basically, okay, so yeah, that's a rectangle. Yeah, they used to be two boxes. At one time, there was a box was an X that was for text, and then, yeah, I think they went away from it. Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah. Okay. Um, so when you look at in the InDesign, the position X and Y coordinates, trying to bring back algebra. So this, it just tells you where it's located. If you're considering an item, an object, you consider, this makes more sense if you use Illustrator. I'm trying to, this is the height and width. This is the scaling, which, if you have the chain on these items, they'll keep it proportional. You can rotate it. So how this is different, like this InDesign is where you bring stuff in, you link your images and stuff. So it's always best to use your Photoshop to do the photo editing, use the Illustrator to make your logos, whatever, and you make it to what you want, and you can place it into InDesign. It's not embedded, because otherwise it'd make the file so big, but it's linked, if that makes sense. And I think in the terms like Dreamweaver in that sense, everything's linked into InDesign. It's not embedded, but while it's in there, like if you have a big picture, you can scale it down in InDesign, and you can rotate it. You can do that. And so one of the things that this might make sense, when you create something in InDesign, you can do okay, let's say you have text, and I think in the terms of websites, how you have one page, but you can create a global change to your text. Let's say, I have multiple pages, and you can have your text. The nice thing about InDesign is they have right here where it says character styles. You can have it where it's local, or you can do it globally. You can create, so like this, when you're changing your text on this page, that's a kind of like a local change to the type. Okay, like if you change it to whatever font and what have you. If you create a style and you name it, let's say, I don't know, test or whatever. Okay, you can make that a global style, I guess is a good word to use for it. Like you can create what the font you want, how big you want it to be. And so if you create something else, like in this box, and you give it that character style, it'll be all consistent. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the nice thing. I was trying to think in the sense like Dreamweaver does. You can do. So that's what this is getting into. So your character here is like a character style is when you highlight, or when you create a character style and you name it, and you go back to that text and you highlight, and then you select that character style, everything that's selected will be globally changed. That makes sense? Okay, so I was trying. Okay, you can do that also with paragraphs. So the difference between character and character style, character is local, character style is global. Well, paragraph, same thing. You can change it. A paragraph style, it could be a global change. So let's say you have if you have a bunch of a type, something typed in there, and then you highlight it, and then you select and you create a style and you name it, it will change it for you. So everything that's selected will change all at one time, because it's been selected as the style. See if I can give you. So, okay, let's say, let me see if I can do this. Let's say I create this test and I want to make it, how about pink or something? Okay, so it's pink. All right, so I want to pick another box, and I put, and okay, if I make it, right now it's under that. If I make it, if I remove it from that, or if I pick none, that means that text is not defined. But if I highlight that and I go to my character style and I call it test, it changes that. You can do the same thing with a paragraph too. You can set paragraphs and tabs and stuff. Okay, let me go back. So and if you're familiar with a lot of the functions and the other Adobe stuff, it'll be, You can have text that's all caps. You can subscribe and all that stuff. You can do that. I just push Control T for text. So this gets this A on top of A. That's called leading. That goes back to the printing days when you put lead between. When they used to do printing with metal. This is kerning. How much space in between. That's legibility to make things easier to read. See. Yeah, that's what I was just kind of showing you. And that's going to be, if I go back to here and you hit Control T into text, and it'll be, I'm sorry, hit Control T for text. It'll be in this hamburger thing they call it, I guess. And here's some of your functions. Any questions so far? So this gets more, so the way I think, well, Photoshop has changed so much over the years, but you can do pages, kind of like, like Microsoft Word, you have pages. Well, same thing with InDesign, you could do pages. So I'm trying to think what they're called. Okay, yeah, so this is just, in this window, you can create the workspace, like all the other Adobe stuff, your character, control, all those kind of things, layers. So how this is similar to Photoshop and all the other Adobe stuff that's out there is knowing you have pages, you can create like multiple pages, but also within that you can create layers just like Photoshop or anything, so you can have layers within the pages themselves too. So the best way I can describe InDesign, it's the way that you just bring all those elements together and you link them into InDesign, but you can manipulate stuff. So this gets into pages. So I was showing in Adobe, when you go into the pages, so you have what's called master, and what a master page is, you can set this up where you could put like a page number here, and so every time it picks a page, you'll keep a number link, or whatever is in that master. When you bring it down, like, let me show you something to make a little bit more sense. So I'm in master A, and if I, make a title, let's say test, let me make this bigger. Oh, you can't see it. We go really big. All right. Why is that? Oh, I'm on my global. Okay. So in this one, if I pick another page from this master and I'm in the master page, so when I pick this next page, page 4, it's going to bring that. So whatever's in your master will carry over. And when you're on this page here, wherever you're doing your master, you can't overwrite it. To change where it says test, you have to go back to the master. And the reason you create masters, let's say you want to create, like I've had to create a calendar and I had to put cells and blocks. I would do that from the master or something of that, and then I would put down the page and I would work from it. So you just have to remember whatever you create in that, when you drag a master page down, if you want to change, you got to go back up to the master page. It's like you can preset up a page.